Ladies and gentlemen, enough of this chit-chat. We have a guest who's going to give us a talk on something, I don't know what it is. He's a writer and a games designer, so I suspect he's designing all those lines. You were telling me earlier that we have two hats. Not wearing any. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Harman.
Thank you very much. Brilliant, thank you for coming, and thank you so much for inviting me. It's just brilliant. So it's my, as you probably know, because you've been here more times than I have, this is my first time here, which is marvellous. Ever so friendly so far. Suppose that way. What this session is billed as is a Q&A with Andrew Harman. A Q&A is difficult when you don't know what questions to ask when you don't know what the subject is. So I'll start off by giving you a few clues. So, tell you a little bit about, I'm here because there's two parts. When I met Gary at UK Games Expo, UK Games Expo, as you may or may not know, is the third biggest convention in the world to do with board games and card games. And it's a fantastic show. First weekend in June in Birmingham, so a little bit far, but it's really worth the trip. Met Gary and started talking to him because he's a big games fan, which is marvellous. And then in the bar, it turned out that I let slip that I'd also written 11 science fiction and fantasy books. To which he said, hang on a minute, science fiction and fantasy and gaming, that's what Armadacon's all about. Why we've never invited you as a guest. So the rest is history, as it were. So, because there's two sides to what I have done, come in. No, sorry. Come in. It's spooky. Because there's two sides of what I've done, so there's the books, and now moved on to the board game design and publishing, and I've got two slots arranged, so I figured that if I talk this morning about the book side of things and the writing side of things, and then we talk tomorrow about the board game side of things, kind of makes sense? Because there's lots to talk about, because it's quite an interesting, strange, interesting story. So, let's begin at the beginning. How did I get into writing? Well, I blame Oliver Postgate and my mum. Sorry? It's a good mixture. And the reason for that is because if you go back to the childhood, there was a beautiful time in British TV when they had a wonderful show called Watch with Mother, which probably would not be allowed to be called that these days. You know, Watch with Parent or Watch with Guider or whatever it is. But Watch with Mother was brilliant because you probably remember all these the same way as I do with fondness, which was brilliant. Nog in the Nog, Oliver Postgate, the Pogles Wood. Yeah, all of everything that Oliver Postgate ever did has just inspired me fantastically because it's just so imaginative. You know, the tales of Graculus, the great green bird, with lots of nodding heads. This is great. But the reason that I include my mum in that is because I was doing what I was told. I was watching with Mother, and so she was watching all this nonsense, beautiful nonsense that Oliver Postgate creates. And when we go on holidays. When we'd go to just days out, walking around Shersley Park up in the northwest of England, it'd be a case of, well, we're walking through the woods, having a great time, and instead of Mum going, be quiet, you might hear a squirrel, or you might see a rabbit, she'd be going, be quiet, you might see Tog. And that was it, you know, those conversations would happen all the time. So my link with reality was already sort of slightly loosened by these things. You know, if I can see a rabbit, I can see Tog. Tog exists. Tog is real. Therefore, Nog in the Nog is real. Therefore, the herbs are real. Therefore, you know, all these things are real and interesting. So that, I think, is what started me off with this strange imagination. And Mum would carry on doing this as I grew up. And at the age of 10, I read all of The Lord of the Rings. I had one nasty big volume of it. Yeah, like a big brick. You open it up and you go, oh, can't move until the film. That's the one, yes, exactly. This massive great big brick of a book. And I read that over the period of one summer holiday. And it ended up with all this stuff. I don't know how Mum did it, because I know she didn't read it, or maybe she did. But it's a case of we were going through walks in the Forestry Commission in the Lake District and having a really good time, and it'd be just like can you see Sherlock? Is this just like Mirkwood and all this stuff? And they'd be like, how did Mum know? And again, that sort of cross into the fantasy world. So, yes, I blame her and Oliver Twist, which is nice. So how did I get into writing? Well, I didn't know I was a writer. I knew I was creative because of all this imagination that was going on, that was encouraged by my beautiful parents. The boring bit is that I went to school, did all sorts of stuff, did a degree in biochemistry, and then ended up working in a laboratory in the 1980s doing really exciting stuff, really valuable stuff, but not very exciting stuff, really. I worked in the haematology department in what's called the National Institute of Biological Standards and Control, which is where I met Jane, my beautiful wife, which is not. So that's a good result for studying hard and getting to the right place. So how does that link in with this? Well, it was the time, sort of a dark time in haematology, when there was the scandal back in the late 80s when blood products were infecting people and giving them HIV, so all haemophiliacs were having trouble. So a setup was established where, so you've got this factor 8. Factor 8, if it's missing, means your blood will not clot. You get a clot, you will die. So that's haemophilia. And the way to fix that is to actually get, back in the 80s, you get a little jar. So this is you as a haemophiliac patient, you get a jar of dried factor 8 product. So it looks like a little icing sugar cake. You add water, you mix it round, and then you inject it into yourself. And you have to do that 2 or 3 times a week, I think it was. The 2 snags. One, does this have HIV in it or not? And some of them did. And that was a big snag. And also, how much factor 8 is in this bottle? Because if you inject the wrong amount, you'll either not clot or you'll clot too fast. So the tests that I was doing was, is this HIV positive, and how much, is this the right amount that it says on the bottle? Because it varies per batch. So, important stuff, boring as hell. Because the snag is, the test for how much factor 8 is in there is how fast does this test tube clot? So you think watching paint dry is boring. This is the equivalent. I'm scientifically watching blood clot. So as a result of that, there was a lot of downtime going on. So it was a case of, well, what do I do for the half hour while it's just cooking? There's not really a lot you can do. So one day somebody in the lab brought in a Gary Larson book. You're familiar with the Far Side stuff? Yeah? And there was one cartoon that just hit me. It's probably the classic one, but it was just the 2 mosquitoes. So you've got one mosquito, a thin one, looking up at this other one that's just filling up massively fast, just about to explode. And I think the caption is, "Pull out, Betty, you've hit an artery." Which is brilliant, because it's scientifically correct. It's also very silly, and it's also very funny. So I saw this, and just later on just started drawing silly, foolish, scientific-based cartoons. And I can't remember, I've been trying to think about what they were. I wish I could have found them, they're in the loft somewhere. But I did 4 or 5 with just that silly sense of humour, and started putting them up around the lab. And people would come in to ask a question and then go, "What's that?" and laugh and go away. I thought, this is nice, I like this is fun. So I carried on doing a few more, and people would start to find excuses to come into the lab, I think. So that was great fun. So I then hit on the idea of okay, so I'm bored doing this, what can I do? So in my spare time, why don't I invent a short story, illustrate it, that would be a bit of fun, wouldn't it? So I thought, well, what would be the short story? Don't know. So I thought, anyway, think about it. So I thought about it, and gradually I started writing it. So I thought, if I write a short story, I can then pick up the best 10 or so parts and do a silly cartoon and see what happens. So I wrote this, and it grew, and it grew, and it grew a bit more. And this is all done in these little half hours or lunch breaks on a pad of A4 paper, handwritten. Anyway, I finished this thing, it was about this thing, and I thought, oh, that's a bit long to be a short story. That's that plan sort of slightly changed. But at the same time, Jenny, who'd then become my fiancée, was typing all this up because she said, "Oh, I've not done typing for a while. I'll practice." So she was typing all this nonsense up, and we ended up finishing this book. And I thought, well, I like it. Jenny likes it. Then I went on holiday with some lovely friends for a week in Scotland. And I said, "I've brought this. I know you love reading. Would you let me know what you think about it?" And amazingly, they all read it in a week and gave it back. And I said, "Well, what do you think?" And they went, "It's great. We want more." More? It's already that. So yeah, I went back and added some extra bits, and that turned into the first book that I wrote, which is The Sorcerer's Appendix. Which some of you may know, which is amazing. You're not, thank you. Bit scared. And then I kind of thought, well, okay, now what do I do? I've got this bunch of pages with words on. How can I get a publisher? So, having worked in the recording industry previous to this, and having interacted with loads of people as a recording engineer, I got to know more about how the sort of creative business works. Because if you're outside it, things just happen. Books get published, records get made, but you don't know any of the business or how to make those contacts. And somewhere, and I can't remember where, I was talking to somebody and they said, the most valuable thing that you can have as a wannabe writer is the artist's book of the year. The Writer's and Artist's Handbook, that's what it's called. And I thought, what's this? You can get it from the library, or you could back then. And it's this, basically a directory of all the publishers of all the books in the UK by genre. So people wanting factual books about the military, that's these, Mills and Boon, anyway, all the names and addresses of all the publishers. So I thought, well, okay then. So I started sending letters off, and got as far as I did, with rejections. I don't take rejection well. I don't mind rejection, but I want to know why. We have looked at your manuscript and we don't think it's suitable. Thank you. That's not good enough. So I was on the phone and she went, "Can you tell me why? I'm not criticising your judgment, I just want to know why so that I can improve and get something better for you." Sometimes it was, no, you can't talk to the right person, which is a bit frustrating. But one conversation was great, because I had sent my first manuscript, The Sorcerer's Appendix, to the guys what published Terry Pratchett. And I got the best rejection ever. Because I spoke to the editor and I said, "Look, seriously, can you just tell me why? I just want to know so I can improve my craft." And the guy said, "To be honest, we think it's too much like Terry Pratchett." And I put the phone down and I went, "Yes!" Straight on the phone to Random House, and it was, "I've just been rejected by Terry Pratchett, publisher. Do you want to see my manuscript?" Yes. So that was quite nice. And yeah, kind of the rest is weird history. So yeah, got a 3-book deal from that, and then went on from there. So there you go. How about that? That's not bad. Well, let's go for what we're here for properly, which is questions and answers. We have a question from. Let's go, ladies first. Oh.
My question is, having written your first book and got the 3-book deal,
Yes.
did you throw in your original job and just stick to writing, or did you hedge your bets on it?
In case you didn't hear that, once I got the 3-book contract, did I pack in my day job immediately, or did I hedge my bets? I hedged my bets. Because I had, at that point, met quite a few other authors, and all of their advice was, and I still agree with it, don't quit your day job. Yes, however I did. When I got the second 3-book deal, okay, backtrack a little bit. With no time pressure, I wrote The Sorcerer's Appendix. So there's no deadlines, nobody jumping on your back. It's a pipe dream, in a way. If this goes somewhere great, then I'm having a bit of fun while I'm doing it. But then all of a sudden you get a deal, and it's like, well, yeah, make another book, and we want to release it in a year. And then suddenly it's like, oh, hang on, now this is a job. This has changed now. This is a little bit different. Well, where do I go with that one? So the first proper book I wrote, I think, now classes as the second book, which is The Progressive War, because that was then people have an expectation, and this is quite interesting. So suddenly the time pressure is there, because you've got to come up with something as good, if not better, and you've got to do it in a time frame. So that changed things. So rather than just do it when I feel like, you've got to do it. You've got to deliver. So that changed things, and then I actually managed to get a job where I was a sales rep, and I don't like being sales rep. At the time, it was a particularly bad time again, I had some funny times, I was going to selling drugs to doctors in NHS hospitals at the time when the NHS just went through a complete lack of funding. So I was going into all these people and going, here's a great piece of equipment, it's going to cost you £25,000. And they come back and go, yeah, we tried it, it's brilliant, it's fantastic, marvellous, yes, can you buy it? No, we've got no funds. So I was there running around the country, just demonstrating all this stuff and getting no sales in. So I wasn't very happy. The company I was selling the stuff for wasn't very happy, even though they recognised all the truth. So basically, once I'd finished the 3 books and got the second 3-book deal, that was the time when it was just like, I'm not happy with the job, this is looking good, let's jump now. And that was a bit scary, but yes. So it took, so basically, it took about 3 years in that transition. And I've done something similar with the games now, so which I'll tell you about in part 2 tomorrow, coming after this ad break. Yes.
Okay. So why did you stop writing?
Pauses, takes a drink. Because, which way around?
Before you end the writing.
No.
Talk about the writing.
Okay.
You
Send my questions to you.
Okay. Comic fantasy.
Well, I hope people think they can make it. Okay, there's 11 books altogether, what I wrote over my career. The first 7 are magical stories set in a magical world where magic is real. So more fantasy based. Magic is real, so in the first book you get the title The Sorcerer's Appendix comes from the appendix of a book that the sorcerer had that the bookworm ate that made it a magical bookworm. So all those kind of things work in, as well as the whole ridiculous story of Firkin and Hogshead, who are the 2 heroes who live in a really poor world, a little village called Midin, whose economy is based on lemmings. The lemming skin trade. So they live at the bottom of this cliff, and once yeah, so basically the lemmings come down, they skin them and sell the lemming skin. Nice.
Don't worry, that's big-headed Barry.
So, what am I trying to say? These fantasies. So you get the idea. They're sort of real world things, but medieval magic exists. And that all follows through quite happily for the first 3 books. And then we introduce the sort of far Chinese influence where you get these creatures called the Damnations, which is where the 101 Damnations comes in after the title. And then I introduce my own version of the underworld. So we've got Helium, which is where all the demons live. And then you get a story like Fahrenheit 666, which is the temperature at which devils are happiest, which is a story of global warming set in this magical medieval world. So the demons, hell's overcrowded, and the only way that hell can expand, being the underworld, is to actually come up onto the surface. You can't come up onto the surface if it's too cold. So therefore you have to heat the world up to Fahrenheit 666 so that they can escape. So therefore it's the devils are escaping, we have to stop them. Does it work? Does it not work? Find out. And so that follows on to another story, which is the Deity Dozen, which again is set there, but now you've got heaven, and the heaven stormtroopers are actually trying to invade to stop the political intrigue going on to elect the wrong person as the leader of hell. Yeah, a while ago.
Regime change.
Yeah, so those 7 were all set in as well. There's another one, Scrying Game, absolutely. About looking to about this little farmer who can look into the future and predict how the farming economy is going to change based on the weather, and he gets it all completely wrong and it all ends up. So those are fantasy world, and the others are set in the real world, which is actually now present day. So it's all the same magical stories, but set in present day. So A Midsummer Night's Dream is the story of 2 of the fairies from A Midsummer Night's Dream. All the fairies are still alive. They're all bored and lazy and doing very little, watching all sorts of strange documentaries and soaps and things, and basically being lazy. And 2 guys, Lupin and Calabrese, decide that the thing that they're going to have to do is put fairies back on the map. Because fairies, as you probably know, way back in time, before the cotton fairies, before everybody just went Victorian and fluffing, proper fairies were evil and naughty. And they would tip over people's stools while they were milking and curdle the milk and steal babies. So these 2 guys decide that they want to put fairies back on the map and start scaring people a little bit more and get on with interrupting modern society. So the thing that they end up doing is trying to steal babies to try and genetically engineer fairies from clone fairies, and it's just, yes. But as you can see, it's sort of set in the real world, including It Came From On High, which is when the Pope finds out aliens exist, what he does about that, which is quite nice. And yeah, other things like that. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yes.
For each of those books, did you start writing the story and get the title? Or was it, I've got this really good idea for a title, how am I going to fit it in?
No. So does the title come first or the plot comes first? In gaming, moving forward, I've been working on a game that I've wanted to make work for ages. I was working, a Polish colleague said something in Polish. And I went, what did you just say? And she just went, not my circus, not my monkeys. And I said, not my monkeys, it's just such a brilliant phrase. And it's all to do with, it's not my fault, somebody else's problem, all that kind of stuff. But not my monkeys. Yes, I have to write a game. It's now been 13 attempts, so I still can't get it quite right. so that's the wrong way to do it, which is annoying. But book-wise, the title has to be, for me, the thing which, if you removed it, the story would not exist. So, The Sorcerer's Appendix is, without those pages of that magic book and the bookworm eating it, there would be no, it's like the crystal point, the part where you just go, and everything grows from there. The Frogs of War is all about 2 warring nations trying to build the biggest frogs to try and attack each other. So it's breeding these 9-foot-tall frogs to go and invade the... Sounds really silly when you do that. What am I doing?
Write the book. Write the book.
And the thing is about you're just a swan.
Yeah, there's all sorts of other strange and wonderful things, like there's river nids and all sorts of stuff flying around it. The river nid is on the way to Sheffield somewhere. Yes, so the title has to come from, the title has to be, in my opinion, the thing without which the book would not exist.
But which came first?
Good question, yes.
One goes out of the other?
Reptile, I don't know, chicken or egg. They kind of coalesce. It was, yeah, writing The Frogs of War, it was, I want this to be a war story. So I want it to be about these physicists I think, yeah, that came from on holiday, that was it. I went to Germany and we saw a massive amount of bizarre bunkers. Oh, actually in France, but it was the German stuff. These bunkers that were built for fueling the V1 and V2 rockets. Amazing place called La Coupole, quite near Paris. And that was great, it's just seeing all that weird science going on there and that sort of mad devotion to just making the best weapons you possibly can. I'm not condoning that, but just the science behind it was fantastic. And the science behind all the nuclear warheads, all the Oppenheimer stuff, those brilliant people doing the wrong things, but developing the right stuff to get into space and all that. It's great. So that was what inspired that. And I was trying to work out, well, in a magical world, what would their equivalent be? So we came up with this whole area of people living underground in these bunkers, and they were the thaumaturgical physicists. So they could get magic and work with the magic and turn it into something strange and wonderful. And they were developing all sorts of weird and wonderful things, but the thing that they hit on was the best way to attack across these swamps, across these rivers, was using 9-foot frogs, and we can ride them. So that's where the idea came from. It's just, so the thaumaturgical physicists existed looking for the ultimate weapon. What is that ultimate weapon? Well, it's the frogs. What are the frogs? It's the frogs of war. So yes, it's all the opposites. It's way around. Next question, please.
If you're not careful, you have to spend your mind. You've forgotten it now, haven't you?
What stopped me?
Yeah, why did you give up?
I've got a question.
Oh, yes, please.
No, that's the last question.
Yes.
The last question.
When you said you wrote Wizard's Appendix sort of like in your spare Sorcerer's Appendix, sorry, in your spare time. And
Yes.
then the next one you had the deal and there was a time limit. Did that make it easier or harder to write?
Okay, in case you didn't hear that, the timing, I was writing the second book with a time frame rather than just expanding over odd lunch times. Did that make it easier or harder? More focused, I think is the answer. It was more a case of, let's do this a little bit more professionally. Let's see if I can actually learn a bit more from the first book, because the first book was an exploration. I had no idea that it was going to get finished. I also had no idea of what the end was going to be. Therefore, I had no idea what the story was going to be. So I would end up wandering off happily into a corner and then going, that whole bit does not work. So I've now got to take that and either adapt it or throw it away, or just have had fun learning more of the craft of writing. So when Frogs of War had to be done, it had to be more professional, and this carried on throughout the rest of them. It was more of the stuff that I didn't think I was going to like, which is the plotting. And I didn't like it, or didn't think I was going to like it, because of the fact that I thought, well, that's just going to take all the spontaneity out of it. And one of the things that I do like is that silliness of writing something and making myself laugh. Now that's disturbing, kind of, but it's quite fun. And you go, well, if I'm making myself laugh, hopefully that should be entertaining for other people. And if you've got the whole joke plotted out, that I know where it's going to begin, I know where the scene's going to go, I know what the punchline's got to be, isn't that going to take some of the spontaneity out of it? Well, I learned reasonably quickly that no, it doesn't. It actually helps, because you've now got to find something even funnier to make that joke work. So, yeah, more focused is the answer. So it's just like, okay, so I've got a weekend, how much can I get done? And then there were more targets, rather than just being 4 pages a day. It was going to have to be, well, I've got to do a bit more. Yeah, is that good enough? Yeah, yes.
So I've linked onto that. Did it spoil the enjoyment of the writing? Because at the beginning you're doing it for your own enjoyment and entertainment, but then you've got this thing where they say, write a story and be entertaining. Did it spoil that enjoyment of it play with it, or did you stick it in?
Did it spoil the enjoyment for having such a structured way of working?
You're under that pressure, aren't you? You've got to do it and you've got to perform, you've got to be on it. And before you had nobody saying you have to be funny, you have to be entertaining, you have to do all of this, and you have to do it next week. So
it didn't spoil the enjoyment, no. I mean, if it had, I don't think I would have carried on written all 11. So I remember it changing. I remember it feeling more like a job, but that sort of, I say, focused it sort of in strange and interesting way. So, yeah, no, it didn't spoil the enjoyment. It sort of, but it kind of, Frogs at War happened in about a year. So from concept to finished took a year, whereas the Source of Appendix took about 2.5. So it was just, and because of that, and because of being able to go, yes, I'm on the roll now, I think that made it more enjoyable. So the whole product just coming together, and I could see it more clearly as well, because of the planning, just going, right, how is this going to end? It's got to end in the big battle. How do we get to the big battle? Not quite sure. And then working backwards and plotting it, and then finding the ways that the story could go, and then making sure that all the right characters were in the right place. It was more of a strategic operation than a sort of take a sentence for a walk kind of idea. So I think it was more enjoyable. Yeah. It was a long time ago.
Surely, when you do the first one, you would try to write a short story.
Yeah.
But then you knew you were a novelist, and you could actually do it. With a novel for a writer is always an effort. And you knew you could try it, therefore, you could sell it. You had that self-doubt. Finish. Or did you? That's the question.
Having once written a story, having the confidence to be able to do that again, I don't think I ever sort of stopped and thought about it, because I signed the contract, I had to. I've got to do this. And besides, I'd rather do this, writing books, than I would working in the laboratory. I've always wanted, when Ian Anderson and Jeffro told me this, I always wanted to be self-employed and self-sustaining. Ian Anderson, man with guitar and flute, formed band, Jethro Tull, fantastic band, love them to bits. I remember seeing a documentary with him in his, well, at the height of his career then, so it's probably Songs from the Wood time, but he was alive and well and living in Scotland, owning a salmon farm, because of the fact that he wrote songs and people liked it. Now that's fantastic. Me and a guitar, I can write songs, loads of people like it, when it comes in, I can do what I want. Brilliant, that's what I wanted, and I've always wanted for this, whatever creative entity Andrew Harman is at this particular time. So yes, I've tried writing songs, and they were okay, and some people liked them, but they never sold. And yes, I've written books. So the point was that what I was aiming for was, the reason for getting the deal in the first place was to be able to sell my books to people who wanted to read my books, which is brilliant. So it wasn't in any doubt really then. So done it once, right, that's my job now, come on, let's make this work. So yeah, that's a bit wobbly, but one read. That's the way I am. Cool. Any more questions before we go to final? No. Yes, bro.
Final question is, do you think that you'll go back to writing books, or is this it now and you don't think you'll go back to writing?
That's the question after the final.
Yeah,
Sure.
penultimate question.
Yes. The penultimate question.
That means I'm not going to kill the panel. That's good. That's Sarah's doing that. Technicians.
Let's go for the...
We kill everyone.
Okay. So the pre-final question. Okay, cool. Well, then. What stopped me writing the books? Commercialism. When I first signed, I signed with a company called Random House. No, I didn't. I signed with a company called Legend. And Legend were exactly the type of people who loved science fiction, loved fantasy, and knew what to do with it. And therefore they supported it. And the guy in charge was a science fiction fantasy fan and loved it. And that was great, and had a really good editor. So that was all working nicely. Legend were then bought by Random House and turned into the label called Orbit. And that was doing reasonably well because some of the staff were transferred. My editor was transferred, John Gerald, he moved over to them, but the guy in charge of Legend either stayed at Legend or disappeared. I don't actually know, I can't remember. He's probably murdered or something. Who knows? But no. So already Orbit were less clued into what I was doing, what I was trying to do, and the market that was out there. And then so that was working quite nicely. So the first 6 books were with Legend, I think, and then it transferred over to Orbit, and they were doing quite nicely. And then the last 3 that were scheduled, that was when Orbit was taken over by Random House. And Random House really don't give a damn about science fiction, unfortunately. So therefore, basically just went, he's written the book, no. And there was no promotion, no support, which is a bit sad and a bit tragic. And so the sales just went, easy. And it was just like, you know, we reached the point where I was just going, is it worth your while publishing this, and is it worth my while writing it? And they kind of went, to be honest, the way we're going to support you, no. All right then. so yeah, you know, after 11 years of doing that, it's effectively made redundant. You know, the market is the market, and you know, if there's support there, and they were already supporting this J.K. Rowling person and putting tons of money behind her, and I'm just going, well, look, I was doing it for her, and there's a bit of a difference, but how about supporting some of the smaller ones who could be the next J.K. Rowling, and go, when their J.K. Rowling sales, we'll support you. It's sort of like, chicken egg. So that's the sad and tragic story of the economic world of book publishing, as it was then.
I've got a question after that.
Oh,
You have a new question behind.
You credit your writing to your mother and Oliver Post, yes? Has your mother ever read your books, and did she like them?
yes, and yes.
Oh, good. Is she proud?
In a mother's way, yes. Bless her, I love her so much. I think secretly it's when can Andrew really have a proper job? But getting more success out of the games now, so she's a lot more happy about the way it's going. But her response is just beautiful. It's just, you know, whatever makes you happy. As long as you're not homeless, and as long as you're not penniless, and you know, just do what makes you happy. So, when you said, has she read my books and has she liked my books, she's read the first 3. I think after that, it was kind of, look, Mum, here's my latest. And she goes, oh, yeah, good. It's not her cup of tea. Like she never read Tolkien, and you know, she would watch Oliver Post, but not. Yeah. I thought you were going to ask, have I paid royalties to Oliver Post?
No. He's dead.
I know. Yes, fairly recently actually. Yeah. There'll never be another bankrupt. Don't you have to...
We might have to that one.
Oh, what?
So the post one.
Okay, right. In this order then. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So
You've answered my
I've
question.
answered. Oh, I have. Yes.
Sarah's.
Would you go on, if you had the opportunity, from what we've just heard, to write more? To do more books?
Not at the moment, and not at the foreseeable, because of the fact that all I want to be able to do is use my imagination in a way that's creative and produce something that people are entertained by. That's the definition of what I want to be. At the time, it was books. Now it's games. And the reason that I'm enjoying writing games so much is, one, they're generally quicker to develop, apart from it's not my monkey thing. What I'm finding more interesting is that I seem to have one of the rarer examples of being able to create games in an interesting way, because of the fact that I've spent ages building worlds. One of the ways that I'm designing games, which a lot of games designers don't do, which makes me a little bit different, is just to be able to go, well, what's the world in which we are playing? So, just to touch on what we're going to talk about tomorrow, just a little taster, in part 2 we will. The reason that my first game exists is because I had to write a game that fitted into a world called Dark Harvest, The Legacy of Frankenstein, which is a role-play game that a friend of mine wrote, and he wanted us, Jenny and I, to develop a board game. So that had to be about Frankenstein's science, Frankenstein's world, and it had to fit into that. So designing games to fit into that world was brilliant. And since then, all the games that I've designed have all been in a world. A small world in some cases, a little dice playing game, but that world building has really helped in the development of the games. So that side of things is being satisfied, so I don't really need to go back into the book side of things, but also it's quicker development, but also we're just doing really well with EA games, so I'm really happy with that. So it's great. So not yet. But I was thinking about that the other day actually, and if I did do it, I think I'd want it to be as a comic format, but that involves working really hard with a very, very good artist to be able to do it. But I've seen some of the work that Ian, who wrote Dark Harvest, some of the work he's doing now is just fantastic. He's working on some brilliant ideas. So we shall see. But games at the moment, because they're fun. And then there was the final question.
Well, unfortunately, your answer was just like this one redundant.
Oh no!
If you were going to go and write novels again, would you consider independent publishing? Really tough.
Well, that's the other thing, and that's down to the stuff that I'm not very good at, the marketing side of things. It's great to have the best book in the world, but if it sits on somebody's shelf and doesn't go anywhere, you've got to be able to shout about it. So yes, how would I physically get that out there? And I haven't really looked into it.
We know a good person we could talk to.
Look,
He's even got a book about it.
looking for right.
So he's even got a book about it on his table.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Which
covers everything except that.
Fine, okay, fun. To end on a negative, don't know.
That's not negative, that's neutral.
Alright, yes.
That could be anywhere.
Oh, okay. I was going to say no and change it to don't know. Cool, okay. Any other? Oh, yes sir.
Good question. A friend of mine did some Star Wars books years ago, and he was given a spec by Lucasfilms what he could do, what he couldn't do, because they owned the rights. But unfortunately, he hadn't checked one of the minor characters he gave a particular story role to. And some eagle-eyed person who says, well, in this particular episode of Star Wars, that couldn't possibly happen. Did that happen to you when you got the spec from BBC Enterprises or whatever, and the Doctor Who or whatever you were doing, you know? Did you find that you took a smaller character, not a major one, and did something, and they said, well, hang on, in a particular episode of the show or somebody else's book, it was different, and some eagle-eyed person will pick it up, and we picked it up. Did you have to change the storyline? You follow? See what I'm getting at?
I haven't worked with anybody's licenses, so
yeah.
I haven't done a Doctor Who story. The worst example of it was one of my dragons changed colour between one book and another. Oh!
That's even
That's Victorian.
Aging, obviously, the
Yeah,
actual aging
yeah, exactly, it's autumn.
something wrong and
Yes. Don't know, but
because you can't keep track of everything. That's up to an eagle-eyed person, of the owner of the rights, to say, well, hang on, in some episode or whatever, that couldn't possibly happen, but because you can't keep up with everything. You know.
Well, I know that Lucas Industries are very, very tight on that kind of thing, because Ian, the guy who wrote the role-play game upon which Frankenstein's Bodies was based, so Dark Harvesting, his day job is writing Star Wars magazines. So he knows an awful lot about what Lucas do. And he's found interesting little ways to keep this. He's been doing it for 25 years, writing stuff about Star Wars in magazines that build weekly. You know, he's done one on helmets. How can you fill a magazine with information about one person's helmet? It's ever so strange. But anyway, one of the things that he does is entertain himself and finds the little holes to put things into. And about 10 years ago, I'm going to get this wrong now, Senator Palpatine, whose character I can't remember what he's got to do with, you probably know better than I do, he was writing a piece about him, and he got all that stuff together, and he had to fill a certain word count, and he was short. And he was going, oh, what can I do? I've already done this, I did that in episode, that previous thing, oh, what have I got to do? So I've got to get another 100 words out of this. So, very naughtily, he invented a character who was a colleague of Senator Palpatine, and he wrote all this stuff about him and how they were drinking buddies and really enjoyed it. And his name was, bearing in mind that Ian is Scottish, his name was Yura Palamain. So Yura Palamain is now in that is true. Well, cool. I think we've got time for one more. Yes, sir?
Yes. When are you going to finish the novel that explains the dragon's colour change?
Okay, easy.
It was a cold day. He changed from green to blue. Yeah.
Well, it changes by itself through
Yes, exactly.
You're like a magic dragon. As he gets warmer, he changes colour. You're a scientist.
Yes.
You're a biochemist.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We also look bigger.
Hang on, copper sulphate, copper oxide, something like that.
Yes.
Copper chloride, thinking the wrong people.
Oh, it's a communal book happening here. It's great. All these suggestions, fantastic. But yes, if you've been in a hydrogen-rich environment, you would come out copper hydride, which is beautiful. You said Coffee Magic Dragon. No, I heard the magic dragon.
Thermatic. Thermochromatic.
Right. See, this is where my ideas come from. I mishear things or misread things, and I think I'll just end on this, which is because often people say, "Well, where do you get your ideas from?" They're all around you. Just loosen your grip on reality. And they will come. When I was little, there was a song on the radio, Puff the Magic Dragon, right? And I thought that was beautiful. This is me aged 5, probably, listening to this. Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the otter mist, in a land called Honolulu. And I thought, that's gorgeous. There's otter mist. What's otter mist? And I loved it. And just in my mind, as soon as I heard that, it's all the dry ice effect you have on BBC 1975, where it just goes over like that, all around your ankle. I thought, otter mist, utterly beautiful. And then the reality hit when I saw the lyrics. Frolicked in the autumn mist. That was good. And on the way here, another otter-related stupidity. We're driving down on the A303, and I see a sign that says Otter Nurseries. And I go, oh, fantastic! Oh, we've got to go, Jenny, we've got to go. Look at all those poor little orphaned otters in Harman. And she went, it's plants! There you go. Loosen your grip on reality.
And you didn't spot any drug-related nonsense?
No. Just beer. That's all I need. Oh, no, I didn't get that. So there you go. Yes, if there's a takeaway lesson, it is loosen your grip on reality. Enjoy. Thank you so much.